Okay, we can go ahead and get started. Again, for those of you that just joined us, I want to welcome everybody on behalf of State Treasurer Michael Fitzgerald, the IAble team, and the Iowa Developmental Disability Council. We're really excited to be able to provide you guys with some information about the IAble program. I'm going to start off with some real quick housekeeping items. I mentioned earlier, so if you're new on the call, we do have closed captioning for anybody that would like to use that. It might take a few seconds for it to load once you click on it, so just give it a minute. It will appear at the bottom of the screen. Just click on the CC or the closed captioning. If you have any technical difficulties or questions during the presentation, please put those in the questions box or the chat box. We are going to hold all questions until the end so we can get through our material, and then we will go back and answer questions that we have. What I'd like to do right now, it looks like we've got a good group of people on, so we'll start the webinar with a poll to find out what people know, how familiar you are with IAble. So if we can launch that poll. Just really quickly, are you not familiar at all? Slightly familiar, somewhat familiar, moderately familiar, or extremely familiar? We'll reveal the results of that poll after we do an introductory video from the State Treasurer. So I'm going to start that video right now. He wasn't able to be here in person, but he did want to welcome everybody.
Hello, I'm State Treasurer Michael Fitzgerald, and I'm also the administrator of the IAble program, Achieving a Better Life Experience. Thank you for joining us for this important webinar today, and also I'd like to thank and welcome our panelists. IAble is an excellent program. And today you'll learn about the ins and outs of this program. And our goal, of course, is to expand the knowledge of all Iowans about the benefits of this program. So during this webinar, please ask any questions you may have. And also, please inform the people around you about this program. And above all, please enjoy the webinar.
All right, so let's go ahead and reveal the results of our poll. Well, that's good news. It looks like we've got quite a few people who are moderately familiar and several that have a lot to learn today. So that's great news, and we'll hopefully answer a lot of questions. We might create some of those questions as well. I'll go ahead and move on. That was a message from State Treasurer Fitzgerald. Now I'd like to have our panelists introduce themselves. I'm going to stop showing my presentation so that you'll be able to see a larger screen of those individuals. So what I'd like to do is have each panelist introduce themselves. I'll start. My name is Karen Austin. I am the Chief of Staff for State Treasurer Michael Fitzgerald. We are the agency that runs the IAble program, and we're really excited to join you today. What I'd like our panelists to do is just tell us what IAble means to them, why it's important to them. I will tell you, for me, it was a great experience to be able to create a new program that really empowers people to have a savings account that they didn't used to be able to have. So we're really excited to be able to provide this opportunity. I'm going to turn it over now to Brooke Lovelace and have her introduce herself.
Hi there, everyone. I am Brooke Lovelace. I'm the director of the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council. Our council works with people with disabilities so that they can live, work, play, and learn in their community. And let's be honest about that. Money is a key part to making sure that that can happen. That is why our council is a strong supporter of the IAble accounts. So people can save for disability related expenses that can help them with their independence and their financial stability. We believe these accounts are underused, and that is why we were really excited to partner with the Treasury Department and support this type of awareness campaign and training, so more people can learn how to save for these types of things for the future. So I appreciate everybody attending today. It looks like we've got a great day for participation for this evening. Even though our focus today is on the IAble accounts, if anyone does need more information about the DD Council, my email will be at the end of the presentation today. So again, thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you, Brooke. Lisa, we're going to turn to you now. Lisa is an IAble advocate as well as a parent of one of our other panelists.
Right, so I'm Lisa Unick from Mason City. I'm the parent of Alicia, who you'll meet shortly. And I got very interested in IAble because of the college spending accounts, which a lot of people use as a tool. And I know that people with disabilities mostly had special needs trusts, and they are difficult to access. So this is really a great and fair, equitable way that people get to use their money as they need.
Thank you, Lisa. Now let's introduce Alicia Balduff. She is an IAble account owner. Alicia, do you want to unmute yourself and you can introduce yourself and tell us why IAble is important to you?
I'm Alicia Balduff. My aim to me is to help me to save money. That makes my life so much better. That will help me the IAble deliver services that I live on my own. I need a little help. My help comes from my waiver worker, Jessica. She's very important to me.
Thank you, Alicia. We are so excited to have you as part of our panel today. And I'll introduce our final panelist, Jason. And I just want to mention the reason why Jason is wearing his crown today is he agreed to be a panelist on his birthday. So we'll wish him a happy birthday and let Jason introduce himself. He is an IAble account owner and an advocate for the program as well.
Well, hello. Yes, from Davenport, and IAble, it means a great deal to me because I've been able to afford a lot more and do a lot more than I would have been able to previously do before IAble ever became reality. And it's meant a great deal to my independent life. And, you know, in addition to working and being able to live my life, honestly, being able to have that financial freedom and that financial security that I didn't have before then, that means a great deal.
Great. Thank you, Jason. We'll be hearing more from our panelists throughout the presentation. I'm going to switch back to sharing my slide deck. So we will continue on with the presentation. I'm going to do one more video, and then I promise not to do videos the whole time, but one of the national organizations that our office is a part of is the National Association of State Treasurers, and many state treasurers are the ones that are launching or have launched the IAble programs. And they got together, it's really important to them to advocate from a national level about the IAble program. And we wanted to share this video that organization put together about the importance of IAble, or about IAble programs. Hang on one second.
As someone who has a son with Down syndrome, this law was one of the best things that's happened to the disability community in a very long time.
In 2014, Congress passed the IAble Act to help families with disabilities save for life.
The IAble Act is a game changer for Americans living with disabilities, but there's a problem.
Only 50,000 Americans are currently using IAble accounts to save.
And more than 14 million are eligible.
An IAble account is a savings plan that people with disabilities or their families can use to save for someone with a disability the same way that people can save for someone without a disability.
Ethan has needed extensive dental work, which has cost thousands and thousands of dollars. You can go down the list, and pretty much every part of his life took on an added expense.
IAble allows people with disabilities to put money away that they can use in the future to cover essential life costs,
without the risk of losing government disability benefits.
We save for Audrey through an IAble account the same way that we save for my other daughter with a 529 college plan.
Before IAble, people with disabilities who depended upon government benefits to cover the high cost of living with a disability couldn't have savings of more than $2,000 without risk of losing their benefits.
Nobody can live off $2,000.
This limitation made it extremely difficult for many people with disabilities to live independently.
Do you want to be in a place where you can live all by yourself and do all the things that you want to do in your dreams?
Yes.
With IAble, you can save without losing SSI, Medicaid, HUD, and other important benefits.
IAble allows you to set aside up to $15,000 each year.
If there's one thing you need to know about the IAble account, it's that your money grows tax-free.
But the difference is that you can use it at any time to pay for any eligible disability-related expense.
My favorite thing about IAble is that it is flexible and simple. That I just go and sign up on the website and it's done and I'm saving.
Stable,
dependable,
Capable,
IAble,
available.
We need your help to spread the word on IAble.
All right, I hope that helped provide a little bit of information. I'm going to start through the presentation and provide some information, but we really are just giving you pieces of information tonight that hopefully spark your interest in the program rather than trying to go in depth in a lot of things. But again, if you have questions along the way, please put them either into the chat box or into the questions, and we have people that are reviewing those as we go. One of the things I wanted to do another quick poll is just ask, do you or someone you know have an IAble account? So we're going to throw that poll up there and let you guys answer that as I move to the next slide. All right, great. We can go ahead and close that poll and we'll see how many of our participants know somebody with an IAble account. Oh, great. So 37% of those on do know somebody with an IAble account, and there's a lot to learn for the rest of us. So this is great. I'll start with IAble is a program that allows some persons with disabilities, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why we say some, but allows them and their families to do three things that are really important. One is to save for disability-related expenses. But at the same time, they can earn tax breaks, both them and their families can. But the most important piece of it is it protects their eligibility for assistance programs such as Social Security and Medicaid. At this point, I'd like to ask Lisa, as a parent of an IAble account owner, what's it's meant to you to see your daughter be able to have her own savings account now? Oh, we need you to unmute, Lisa. Sorry.
There we go. Sorry, I clicked it the other way. Alicia does work part-time, and so she's really been earning, and so we have been able to save some money from her earnings, and that it does get scary for eligibility. She lives on her own, but she needs some support. She needs just a little bit of help. So it's really important that she stay eligible for her Medicaid waiver services. It just as a lifelong thing. And so if we would be constantly falling off and on services, that would be a big problem for her independence. So it's such a great tool to finally come around that is sort of a benefits planning way that we can save money and know that she can also have the help she needs.
That's great. And I think that's what's really important for families and the individuals with a disability to understand is, and we'll talk more about that as we keep going, that you truly can have savings and keep your benefits. I'm going to throw up one more. We're going to quit with full questions for a little bit after this one, but eligibility is one of those interesting things. So we wanted to just throw up a question, true or false. And again, since most of you don't have an IAble account and many of you aren't familiar with it, we don't expect you to know the answer, but a disabled individual over the age of 26 cannot have an IAble account. Is that true or is that false? And as we're looking at that, and as you guys are voting, I'm going to go to the next slide, which you'd think might be the answer, but it's a little bit tricky. It's a little bit of a trick question. We can go ahead and close that poll and show the results. You know what? You can't trick this group. You guys know it. You know, that is one of the criteria that must be met to be eligible to have an IAble account in general. Is that the disability has to be present before the age of 26. But we get a lot of people that thinks that means they can't open an account if they're 50. And they can open an account if they're 50. The disability just had to be present before the age of 26. That is something, honestly, that we're working nationally with all of the other states and disability community to try to raise that age limit. But the other eligibility criteria is you have to at least have one of the following be true. If you're eligible for supplemental security income, SSI, or Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI, due to blindness or disability, you're automatically eligible, again, once you meet the age restrictions. Or you can self-certify if you have a similarly severe disability, but you've chosen, you're either not entitled to SSI, SSDI, or you've chosen not to utilize that resource. Now, there's a lot of information, again, on our website. We'd encourage you at the end, you know, if we've piqued your interest to review kind of more of that information on that. I'm going to talk about contributions right now, because that's a really, you know, where the money can come from. Again, to Lisa's point earlier, the ability to have the savings, that money can come from the account owner if the individual with a disability does work. Then they can put their own money in, or if they have a source of income, they can put their own money in. You can roll it over from a 529. In the video, there was, and I think Lisa talked about it too, the ability to save for families, to save for college. If you've done that and now you want to roll it into an IAble account, you can do that. And the other great thing is family and friends. They can make those contributions to the account. Again, it's allowable under the benefits rules. I'm going to ask Lisa to tell us just a little bit about how family and friends can help an account owner save with IAble. Is that something that you guys have your family and friends helping with?
So we have just, even though I've been a longtime advocate, we are more recent at having our own account. So this year will be our year where we're really inviting people, instead of giving like gift cards or other types of gifts to Alicia, which can impact, or we're supposed to report as part of her earnings to support systems. And we will just tell them and give them a link to her account. And so they can just give directly to that, knowing that they're really helping with something important, like her goals or real needs.
And that's great. One of the great things that we have available through our program is a U-Gift program. So it is just as easy as giving a code to family members, family and friends. So that's great news. I want to talk a little bit about the contribution amounts. There are a lot of rules that go with these IAble accounts. So we're going to try to tackle a few of them tonight. $15,000 is the federal annual contribution limit. So that's the maximum amount that you can put in an account. Now in the next slide, I'm going to give you an exception to that rule. But we're going to start with $15,000 is the contribution limit. So when we talk about friends and families participating in helping save, the total amount of that cannot exceed $15,000. One of the things that was really important to State Treasurer Fitzgerald when we started this program was he wanted easy entry for people. So we said we want to be able to have an account where you can open it with just $25. So you can literally open a IAble account with $25 and then just sit back and watch it grow. There is a federal limit of $100,000 when you're looking at what is excluded for your Social Security income. resource limit. So that's an important number for people to know. Since we're such a young program, given that you can only do the 15,000 per year, it's going to take a while for people to get to that limit, but that is a limit that was established by the federal government. Now, as I said a moment ago, $15,000 is the annual contribution limit, but the federal government recognized recently that they wanted to expand that for ABLE account owners who earn income. So they wanted to allow them to have that additional ability to put money in that they earned from income. So in addition to that $15,000, they can contribute the lesser of either their earned income or the one-person poverty level in their state of residence. So right now for Iowa, that's $12,760. So if you earn less than that, you can put it all in. If you earn more than that, you can put up to the $12,760, and it won't impact that $15,000. Now I want to go to Jason and Alicia, and I'll start with Jason. But to answer the same question, we know you're a working account owner. Can you talk to us a little bit about what it's like to work and have an IAble account?
Well, it's actually one of those big benefits, you know, it's kind of one of those bonuses. I mean, yes, a lot of people who either have an account or are eligible for one, they probably don't work, but for those that do, it is kind of an extra bonus, you know, to actually be able to save more than you're typically allowed to, you know. That does.
Great. And Alicia, thanks, Jason. And now, Alicia, can you tell us what it means to you to be able to work? Your mom mentioned earlier that that was one of the concerns. So being able to work now and have your ABLE account.
I'm Heidi, and I'm getting more hours now because of COVID-19. Right now I'm making more money and I'm getting bigger checks ever. I'm saving more money that to protect my savings, tax, the status waiver. I can keep where I need, just need the help with groceries, some duties, and cooking for fun.
That's great. I mean, we're really excited to be able to have you guys share with us how important that is to be able to have a place to put that money that you earn when you're working. One of the biggest questions that we always get about the program, so I'm going to switch and talk a little bit about withdrawals, is questions about, well, what can you use the money for? And typically, I work for the state government, and I know the federal government enabled these programs along with our state. But a lot of people think of when you know, something is run by government, it's probably complicated and they made it, you know, difficult and narrow restrictions. One of the great things about ABLE programs is the definition of a qualified disability expense is anything that relates to the account owner's blindness or disability and benefits them in maintaining or improving their health, independence, or quality of life. That's a very broad definition, and it was done that way intentionally. When you think about saving for college, that's a very specific, you've got very specific expenses. In terms of disability related expenses, you know, there are just so many things that again can improve the health, independence, or quality of life. So education, assistive technology, transportation, housing, legal fees. There's more than just that. Those are some examples of the types of things, but I'm going to ask Alicia and Jason. Alicia, we'll let you go first this time, but what are some of the examples of expenses, the things that you're saving for the future expenses in your ABLE account?
I'm a homeowner of a condo, and I had water damage, and I got insurance paid, and IAble could have help if needed. Any of my condo expenses can be covered. Also on my bench, I can join the deck, where I can use from my special shoes, sneakers, and new shoes. I know that I can use IAble for things to make my life better. I can use our animal for transportation.
That's great. Thank you for sharing, Alicia. Now, Jason, you want to give us some examples of what you're saving for?
Well, most of my examples might fall on 2 of the main 5 categories. I'll tell you about each one of them. First, with transportation. So it's like, for example, last year I put a down payment on my current car that I have right now. And then earlier this year, I paid the rest of it off. So having the IAble account came in handy. And then every so often I might take a road trip, you know, having the money for travel and whatnot. That especially helps as well. And then there's housing. So like, say if I move to another, very handy to put down a security deposit from the IAble account. And not too long from now, my roommate and I are actually going to be getting a pet, and there's a fee that we have to jointly pay, and so a housing related expense, I can just pay my split out of that. It's that simple.
That's great. And I think those are great examples of the things that people use this program for. And again, that broad definition allows people to use it for the things that work best for them. One of the things we talked about, I'm going to switch gears again now, are the tax benefits. We understand when we originally launched this program, we knew that the tax benefits are very similar to the college savings. But it became quickly apparent to us that it was the ability to save outside of SSI that was really important, but it's really important to understand the tax benefits that go with this. So at the federal level, the savings grow federally tax deferred. So if you have money in an investment account, you're not going to pay any taxes on what you're earning as that money is in the account. Then qualified withdrawals, so all those things that we talked about, they're federally tax exempt, so you never pay taxes on that money that you earn in that account. And then recently Congress made it so that you can roll over assets from a 529 plan without penalty. And that was really important to a lot of families. When Iowa decided to start their program, you know, the Iowa legislature, again, in a very bipartisan fashion, was very supportive of this program. So they wanted to make the benefits of this program, the tax benefits, the same as they are with the college savings program. They wanted to extend those same benefits. So again, the savings grow tax deferred while the money is in the account, and all withdrawals are state tax exempt. Again, this is for Iowa income taxpayers. But they also put in the state tax deduction for any Iowa taxpayer that's contributing to an IAble account. So if anybody's familiar with College Savings Iowa, you have to have your own account. Here, the account is owned by the eligible individual, but anybody can contribute up to the maximum $3,439 in 2020 can be deducted if anybody contributes that. So that's kind of an exciting benefit that was added to the IAble program for Iowans. So one of the most important things that we've learned along the way is the importance of maintaining your eligibility. We've talked about Social Security income eligibility, and that's probably the most important one that people really look at. So the first $100,000, we talked about that $100,000 earlier, that you save in an IAble account is disregarded from SSI eligibility. Now, any funds over that would be treated as a resource. Housing expenses are treated a little bit differently, so we'd encourage you to look at our information about those, but they are not treated as a resource if they're withdrawn in the month that they are used. So that's a really important distinction to make sure that if you're taking it out in July, you make that payment in July. IAble does report account balances monthly to the Social Security Administration, so they do have the information about how much people do have in their Social Security, in their IAble accounts. And then Social Security and SSI monthly benefit payments can now be directly deposited into an IAble account. That was an exciting ruling that was made earlier this year. So you are able to put those benefits directly into your IAble account. So I'm going to really quick throw up another poll question. So again, we know that this is a really important benefit. We've talked a little bit about Medicaid. So true or false, Supplemental Security Income, SSI, and Medicaid are the only two benefit programs that disregard ABLE accounts for eligibility. Do you guys think that's true or false? We'll go ahead, we'll just make that one a quick one and close that down and see the results as I switch to the next slide. Boy, you guys, you just can't get anything past this group. You are correct. That is false. So we've talked about SSI, Medicaid, ABLE assets are disregarded in determining Medicaid eligibility. One thing that we do want to point out is following the death of an account owner, any state may file a claim against the account owner as a Medicaid recapture, and Iowa currently does do the recapture. We are not able to provide any kind of advice regarding Medicaid, so if you do have questions on that, we would recommend that you call your income maintenance worker with Medicaid. But some of the additional programs that the federal government has made clear, they've made rulings to say that they will disregard ABLE assets are housing and urban development, so HUD, the free application for federal student aid or FAFSA, and the supplemental nutrition assistance program, SNAP. So I think this really shows there's a dedication to making sure that these resources do not hurt anybody in any way. Now I'm going to spend a short amount of time talking about our investment options. There's a lot of information on our website and in our program disclosure, so we encourage you, if you're looking at opening an account, to either look at that material or call our toll-free number. But I just want to give you a little bit of information about the investment options. As I said earlier, you can open an account with as little as $25. There is a fee to have an account. It's $5 per month for a maintenance fee, but we will discount that by $1.25 a month if you agree to sign up to e-delivery, so we don't have to mail things to you. There are some additional fees, so I'm going to move and talk about the investment options. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the different investment options. What I do want to point out is if you're familiar with investing, the companies that we're using, BlackRock, Schwab, Vanguard, and Sallie Mae Bank, are well known in the investment world. They are first-class investment managers, and you're able to get access to their products at very reduced fees because you're part of a large group. We're able to pool everybody's money together and get low fees, so that 0.34% to 0.37% in annual assets fees is a very low amount to be able to invest with companies such as this. You can, if you're viewing this online, you can see we have 6 different investment options. I'll talk in a minute about our checking option. But what we wanted to do was to provide people with options. If they are somebody who you're not going to need the money for a long time, you might want to be a little more aggressively invested in the stock market. So we have one that's a 90% stock, 10% split. In our aggressive growth fund to really look at maximizing return over the long term. But we also have our most conservative fund, has just 10% in the stock market, 30% in the bond market, and then 60%. So the bulk of it is in Sallie Mae Bank. So it's really in cash. We have 4 different options in between there. So the idea is to give people an idea, to give them choices on how they want to invest the money. We do have some great tools on our website that help you understand what you're saving for and what your risk tolerance is to make those choices. One of the great features that we also have is a checking option. So for those of you that are interested in the checking option, you can actually have a debit card. It's an FDIC insured product with online and mobile banking. Through Fifth Third. Even though Iowa doesn't have any Fifth Third branches, you can pretty much get access to your money through ATMs all over the state. They have agreed to do no overdraft or non-sufficient funds fees for our account owners, so that was really important to us. There is a fee to have the checking account. It's $2 a month, but Fifth Third has agreed to waive that fee under 2 circumstances. So if you have over $250 in your account, they'll waive it, or if you agree to enroll in e-delivery with Fifth Third, again, so they don't have to mail a statement to you. So we do everything we can to try to get those fees down as low as we can. I'm going to pause here and ask Jason, I know you have the checking account. What are some of the benefits of using the checking option?
Absolutely. As you just said, I do use the 100% check. And I can tell you that there are two big benefits to this, at least two that I'm aware of. The first one is, you know, as you just said earlier, some people would prefer to invest. But the drawback of that is if you were to invest, it's not a guarantee that the money would necessarily be there. You know, that's the beauty of the checking option, you know, with the exception of those quarterly fees with the e-delivery and whatnot. The money is always there for you to spend or add to. So that's a big benefit of that. And the second benefit is like a standard banking savings account, you do earn interest per month, every month, based on what you have in there with this option. So that is also a big benefit of this as well.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you for mentioning that. It is an interest-bearing checking account, so you do get some interest on that. All right, I'm going to move on now and talk about what an authorized individual is. Sometimes I think this is one of the more complicated things about the IAble program, so we want to spend just a little bit of time talking about how these accounts work. So sometimes we have an eligible individual, so they've met that criteria we talked about earlier, but they're under the age of 18, so they're not going to be able to sign a legal binding contract. They wouldn't be able to sign our participation agreement. In those cases, a parent can enroll as an authorized individual during the enrollment process, and there's no additional documentation that is necessary. Now, I do want to give the caveat as when we move to the next slide. Once that individual becomes 18, they do have the ability then to take that account over. And there are some scenarios where there might be a court-appointed guardian or conservator, and they are able to enroll as an authorized individual, so they can open the account. They're always required to open it, you know, in the benefit of the eligible individual. In those cases, you will be asked to provide documentation that gives you the authority to manage finances for that individual. So we do have some eligible individuals that are over the age of 18, and we look at that in three different categories. There's two categories, then there's maybe a bonus category, let's say it that way. So we do have some people over the age of 18 who maybe lack legal capacity. So they do not have the ability to sign that paperwork due to their disability or maybe for another reason. If that's the case, the account owner, with appropriate documentation, an eligible individual can open that account on their behalf. I do want to point out that for parents that have a child over the age of 18, you do have to be able to demonstrate that you're a conservator. You are not able under Iowa law to be a guardian and open the account. So the court has to deem you to be a conservator to be able to do that. If the eligible individual does have legal capacity, then they can open the account on their own, but they also have the ability, once they have the account open, if they want to give their parents or their friend or their attorney or anybody power of attorney to be able to provide the forms or do any transactions, they can do that by filling out one of our forms. And then lastly, we know that sometimes you have somebody that you want to just add somebody to the account. So maybe there's parents that both of them want to be able to transact on the account. You can always add an authorized agent, and we have 4 levels of those authorized agents. So you can grant somebody the ability to just view the information so they can get information about the account, up to and including making transactions on their behalf. So we know there could be a lot of questions about this piece of it. Again, we would encourage you to look at our website, review our documentation, or call our toll-free number. Of course, again, if you have questions as we're going, go ahead and throw those out there. We're going to answer them at the end. When we're almost done with this, this portion of it, I'm gonna flip back real quick, okay. So opening an IAble account, for those of you at the beginning, we found out that a lot of you do not have an IAble account or know anybody with an IAble account. Hopefully you've gotten some information today that might lead you to the path of wanting to explore that. We encourage you to go to iable.gov. Of course, if you're interested in opening an account, we ask that you read the program disclosure statement. Choosing the best investment option is one of those important things. Again, knowing whether you want just a checking account, if you want just an investment account, or if you want to have both, you can do that. And then you've got to gather up all of your personal information. You'll need things like your social security number, date of birth. Again, if you're opening an account for an eligible individual who is over the age of 18, you'd need those conservatorship paperwork. So you'd need all that documentation. So hopefully we've given you enough information to spark your interest today. This was just a quick overview of IAble. I could probably spend 2 hours just talking about the program, and I'd love to talk about the program. But I'm going to ask one more question to the attendees before we move on to our panelists. After today's presentation, we'll go ahead and put the last poll question up. What is the likelihood that you will open an account or maybe recommend opening an account to somebody, with going from extremely likely to unlikely to neutral to likely and extreme? Whoops, I think we've got that top one is supposed to be extremely unlikely. But anyway, if you guys want to go ahead and answer that poll question, and then we'll close that poll and move on to see the results there. Great, so it looks like, and I think since we kind of had a glitch there in our answers, we're just going to say most of you are extremely likely or likely to open an account. Sorry about that. We're going to move on to questions in just 1 minute, but what I want to do is have each of the panelists, we've just so appreciated having your voices here today, to tell us, is there any advice that you'd like to give someone who's thinking about opening an IAble account, or any other information you'd like to add? Alicia, we can start with you. You don't have, if there's not anything else, there might be some questions for you at the end. I think you shared a lot of great stuff with us already.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to get Lisa's perspective once again, because it's really great to have a parent on. So Lisa, any advice you want to share, or anything else you want to share?
Well, I think I was so excited about IAble when it first came out, and yet I delayed for a while actually doing it, and there was no reason. So, I mean, I think that I thought, oh, I wonder if there'll be fees. Yeah, but you know, there are banking fees wherever you bank. So I would say to people, stop it, just do it. You know, there's no reason not to, especially since it's such a great tool. And I don't know if you could hear Alicia's talk about, you know, she really understands that things that make her life better. So, and living independently, and she does own her condo. I mean, she makes payments on it, but she's the homeowner, and she has repairs and things that happen, and she might need something to live independently, and those things matter.
That's great, and that's really important. What we wanted to do with this program is really empower people to be able to do those things, and to have a little money in the bank to make sure when that roof starts leaking that they have those funds. And finally, Jason. Jason's been a part of IAble for quite a while, and has been a great advocate. Do you have any additional advice or comments you want to share?
Absolutely. So, like, you know, ever since the ABLE Act was passed and then leading up to IAble, you know, part of my independence was first moving into my own, first getting a job and then moving into my own place, and eventually getting, then IAble started, I immediately jumped on right away. And since then, it's made a big difference. I couldn't begin to tell you how much that I've been able to do in my life that I simply was not able to do prior to IAble. So, I already had a wonderful independent life prior, but I couldn't tell you how much more independent I feel like I am, you know, with the program. I mean, it's been a big benefit to me. And as I once said in an appearance that I once made on the news about this, I'll say this again. If you've never heard of it, and now that you have, I would strongly suggest, you know, looking into it, because it will make a big difference, you know, in anyone's life, you know, with a disability, and it will help them become independent the way I have.
That's great, Jason. We so appreciate you guys sharing your stories. At this point, we'd like to go through some of the questions that we received during the webinar. If you have a question, you still have time to get that into the questions box or the chat box. If we're not able to answer everybody's questions today, we will definitely follow up with anybody that did have a question. I just did want to point out before we move to that, Brooke mentioned earlier that her information would be on the last slide. So we will make this information available to everybody that participated in the webinar today. But we have the information for IAble. Again, that's iable.gov is our website, or the Iowa Developmental Disability Council is iowaddcouncil.org. But we want to make sure that we have time to answer your questions. So what questions do we have out there?
This is Brooke. We do have quite a lot of really good questions. We do have quite a bit of questions about eligible related expenses and having some examples of that. And Karen, I think you did give some examples of those. Questions are coming up if they can be used for fun types of items like vacations, or to pay for a companion to attend a vacation, or to pay for like a big screen TV for your house, those types of things.
So the first thing, I went back to the slide so you can see the qualified disability related expenses, and that really, really small print on there, I'm gonna point that out this time, which does say the Treasurer's Office cannot provide tax or legal advice related to qualified disability expenses. But so I will tell you some things, and you just cannot take that as advice. And we can certainly turn to some of our other panelists. But again, going back to what I had indicated earlier, is the definition of a qualified disability expense was intentionally left broad, because it's very difficult to really capture everything that could truly help somebody maintain or improve their health, independence, or quality of life. What we would always caution people to do as they're thinking about that is, the way that this would come back would be you're getting a tax benefit. So to be a qualified disability expense and not have to worry about those taxes, you do have to make sure that it's for a qualified expense. We would suggest in terms of, there are a lot of things, again, that a story that somebody once told me who had a brother with a disability was they did horseback riding because that really helped with his physical, just helped with his development that way. And so on the face, you would say horseback riding, that sounds like entertainment. But again, if you can tie it back to what is helping you improve your health, independence, or quality of life, that would be the gauge. We would hesitate in, people, remodeling a family home too much to say that it's for the one individual that lives in maybe a house of 6 other folks. But again, the idea is to be broad. I don't know if anybody else wants to share some of the types of things that they use their money for. We've heard home repairs and cars and all of that kind of stuff. I hope that helps. I know we've got some additional information online. We're just really hesitant to specifically answer the question, what a large screen TV. I can't answer that legally, can't answer that question of whether or not that would be a qualified disability expense. It just has to be able to fall into that category of maintaining or improving the health, independence, or quality of life.
I think I would like to add that people should try and be a little cautious with this so that it's not something that goes away because people are abusing it. But I think that because it's broad, that we have a lot of leeway. And if it may seem like maybe TV and compute and gaming isn't part of it, but if that's the person's life independently, then that's a key piece of it. I mean, but don't go crazy and try and do something that's not right. You can just have a gut feeling about that, I think.
That's very good advice.
Another question we have about eligibility: is it a person diagnosed with a disability or approved as a disabled by the federal government before 26?
So what was just to reiterate what that meant, what was the question again? Sorry.
Sorry, Karen. Is the diagnosed with a person, is it to determine if it's a diagnosed with a disability or is it approved as a disability by the federal government before 26? So I think is it just a person being diagnosed, or does the federal government have to approve it?
No, the disability just has to be present, which in order to say that the disability was present, we would always recommend that you have some sort of diagnosis, but that wouldn't have anything to do with whether or not the federal government qualified you as disabled or not. If it's a disability, there is broad categories of disabilities, but the diagnosis would just have to be there before, well, actually, I'm not even sure it's a diagnosis. The disability has to be present before the age of 26. So again, if it's something that was clearly, from birth on, then it would have been present, but you would want to have, some sort of diagnosis from a doctor.
And then we do have some questions about what happens to the account when an individual passes away. Can the funds be left to a non-disabled child as an inheritance, or is it lost on death like it is with the special needs trust? And
so one of the things that the federal government allowed, we talked a little bit about, is the Medicaid recapture. So if you have been on Medicaid, and there are funds that can be recaptured, this estate may file a claim against the account as Medicaid recapture, and Iowa has informed us that that is something that they do. But outside of Medicaid recapture, then these funds belong to this individual. So they would be able to, if they have an estate, they would just go into that estate and be distributed according to the estate upon their death. So the only difference there is with Medicaid.
Okay. And then kind of on the same note, can inheritance go into an IAble account, and is it maxed at the 3349 amount?
So inheritance can go in, it would be maxed at the $15,000 amount. The 3,339, whatever it is, amount is the amount that somebody could take a tax deduction for. So the real limit to how much can go in any given year would be $15,000. Now remember that if somebody is working, they can get that additional, either what they're making or capped at that $12,000 number in addition to the 15, but for outside money, it would be that 15,000. Now, depending on where that money is, that's $15,000 per year. So if that money went into a different account, it could be moved over to this account after, but that max of $15,000 does apply.
Okay, some questions about conservator. If a person has a court-appointed guardian.
Guardian,
goodness. That's what happens when it's at 7 o'clock at night.
That's
but
right.
Not a conservator. Is that good enough, or does the guardian need to file for that conservatorship?
So in Iowa, one of the great things about Iowa law, and we can all debate what's great about some of the way that we do things, but Iowa really recognizes individuals with disabilities as having having rights. So one of the concerns is if somebody is over the age of 18, we talked a little bit about if they're under the age of 18, then a parent can't open an account. Once they're over the age of 18, ABLE cannot determine whether or not they have legal capacity or not. So we rely on that conservatorship paperwork. And our attorneys are very clear, and that we need to have that paperwork say conservator, guardianship, and I am not an attorney, so I'm not going to pretend to be one now, but guardianship is really, talks about of the person. So it's making the decisions about where they live, their transportation, those kind of things, their health. But a conservator actually has the legal ability to manage their finances. So that paperwork does need to be done. The guardianship would not be enough under current Iowa law. But we encourage people, as you're getting guardianship, we want to try to encourage people to incorporate the potential of an ABLE account in that paperwork. So even if you don't have an ABLE account today, but you're working on guardianship paperwork, make sure you just build into that with the court. We're really hopeful that the courts will start doing that automatically on their own. So.
But can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
So any adult with a disability who doesn't have a guardian or a conservator can open their own account?
Oh, absolutely. If they have legal capacity, absolutely. In that case, they don't need a guardian or a conservator. So absolutely. And those there's no additional paperwork in that case.
And you may have answered this, Karen, but is a representative payee able to be the authorized agent on an account and able to open up an account on behalf of a person?
So my understanding right now is that a rep payee is not able to do that. A rep payee is specifically in charge of the Social Security income. So there is a movement nationally to try to change that to allow certain rep payees to be able to actually open the ABLE accounts in their capacity, because it has been recognized at a national level that that is something that would be beneficial to a lot of individuals that do have a rep payee. But at this point, a rep payee would not have that alone would not provide enough authority to open an account. Again, if it's somebody that has legal capacity, they can open the account and they can name a rep payee. They can name anybody they want as power of attorney or give them the ability as an authorized agent.
And this is one I don't think we got to. How do you close an account?
Closing an account is as simple as I think you can do it online, or you can fill out a form and just request that your account be closed, and all those funds would then be returned back to you either through a check or direct deposit back to a different account. But the money belongs to you. It belongs to the eligible individual. So that money is always there for you. And if you change your mind and don't want to have the account, you can close it and take your money at any point in time.
Okay. How can people find out more in-depth details about opening IAble versus what we were able to talk about today?
Right, I know. I just, like I said, I could talk for a couple hours on this subject. I put this slide back up on our contact information. So we do have a website. It's iable.gov. We know that some people like to get information online and others do not. So we do have a toll-free number. That's 888-609-8910. And that's answered during the day hours. It's not a 24/7 line. And then also we have the ability, if you have a question and just want to email it, it's ia.clientservice@savewithable.com. So just to give you a little background about why we're at savewithable.com, Iowa is one of soon to be 18 states that went together to offer our ABLE programs, yet still make them personal to our state residents. So we are in a National ABLE Alliance with 17 other states, and that's how we're able to provide the low cost, the $25 entry fee.
We do still have a few more questions if people want to stay on.
I would say I'm available, so certainly we understand if people start dropping off, but I'll answer more questions if we've got them.
So I don't think we touched on this one. Can an account owner switch to the checking account from investment account? And how often can that be done?
Yes, so there are some really, I almost said goofy, so there are some interesting rules around how you can move money between those two investment options. But yes, you can have money in both an investment account and in a checking account. And if you think of it a little bit like a savings and a checking account, that works. There is some restrictions in ABLE, and we'd love to see those change down the road. They're kind of a carryover from the college savings programs, and they don't make a lot of sense in ABLE, but you're only allowed to make investment changes twice per year. So you wouldn't want to be moving money, well, you wouldn't be able to move money more than twice in any given year from, like, let's say your savings account to your checking account. But we do have the ability set up where you can do automated transfers. So you can just say, you know what, every month I want you to take $500 from my savings account and put it into my checking account, because that's going to be what I use as my spending money. So I don't have all of my spending money in the checking account. So if you automate that, you can do it that way, but you do have to be careful about how many times you make those moves. Now, I do want to make it very clear that it is your money and you always have access to that money. So when we say you can't move it, you can always withdraw from either the investment or the checking account more than twice per year, but it's just moving money between those two accounts.
Is there, if you are a working individual with a disability, is there a salary cap or wage cap that will make you ineligible to enter into the savings through IAble? So is there an amount of money that's too much that you cannot open an account?
I am going to say we will get back with the participants on that for sure, unless somebody else knows. I feel like the answer to that is no, because our eligibility requirements go with your disability. Additionally, they have the, I think I went too far, they have the maximum amount that you can put in, which was that $15,000, or you can have another $12,000 from work. But to my knowledge, there is no, I think I'm actually going to change to say there is no income or no income thresholds. There could be some for whether or not you're eligible for SSI, and that might be why somebody's not eligible based on that criteria that we talked about earlier. You know, if you are not eligible for SSI, that wouldn't be the eligibility box that you could use. You'd have to use the self-certification box.
I think you answered how often people are able to withdraw from their account.
They can withdraw anytime they need the money.
And if you're on SSDI, can you enroll?
Yes, that's one of the automatic eligibility requirements, again, that goes with the age requirements.
And I believe if you directly deposit your SSI into IAble, that does still count towards the $15,000.
Correct. That goes towards that $15,000. And just so you know, the program does keep track of how much money is coming in. So the program will stop you from over contributing to the program. So if you've already hit that $15,000 threshold, you would tell us that, yes, I have income from work. Then it would allow you to go that additional $12,000 over. But the program would return the money. Because the last thing we want to do is inadvertently, we're reporting to Social Security every month how much is in your account. We certainly don't want to be a reason that we're throwing somebody over that threshold.
Can I add something quickly?
Yes.
So some people get confused that their earnings don't count if they put it in the IAble, but when you earn money, and that counts. But so Social Security is going to count all the earnings you put in IAble, and so will other programs too. So the earnings part is still a disability measure. So
thank you very much. That's a very good point.
There is another comment that I would like to make too.
Yeah.
Oh, so what I actually realized this a few years ago. So it's like, you know, generally the vast majority of the ways that you can put money, you know, it'll work fine. But I just wanted to caveat that I realized a few years ago. See, I was actually trying to direct deposit one of my tax refunds into my IAble account. Apparently they won't allow that, because what I realized is they ended up sending me a paper check because of the fact that for whatever reason it wouldn't go through. So my advice is, if you're ever considering direct depositing a tax refund, if you do are eligible for one, it won't work with an account apparently.
That is true. We are not a bank, so we are a government security. So we would not have the ability to do that direct deposit, even though we have a banking option. I know that sounds kind of silly, but it's a little bit different. Brooke, are there any other questions out there?
I mean, there was just quite a lot about the conservatorship and the guardianship. But I think you answered those. One is about if my husband and I are both the guardians and we are under the impression that they could not have a debit card for their IAble account. Is that true? And is that only because that they don't have conservatorship then too, or?
Well, that gets, that is definitely a question in the weeds, and I appreciate that, because that is one of the difficult things. If you have joint people that have authority in that scenario, that is a case in which they will not issue you the debit card, because if you are joint conservators, that means it takes two people to move money, and there is no way with a debit card to ensure that two people are actually transacting on that. So that would give somebody the ability to act without the other one. So that would be one of the instances in which you would not be able to have the debit card issued.
Okay, just two more questions I see. I don't think we've answered. Oh, there is. I'm sorry, this was one earlier that we have a question about going more into what counts as housing expenses. And I don't know if any of our panelists could maybe comment on that too, on what can be counted as housing expenses.
Well, I think both of our, but Lisa, I don't know if you have any, both of ours that you're living independently. So clearly, whether you're paying rent or whether you're paying a mortgage, that would be housing expenses. I'm not sure if it's wanting to get into, clearly any expenses to live in that house would be covered. Lisa, did you have something?
I was just saying, well, any accommodation and change would be certainly important, or if it just improved the quality of it, like if the flooring, carpet versus a smooth flooring or something for the reason of the health, or even just because it was like dusty and the carpet is like for someone with asthma, you have to get it out of there. So, or just things that make your life easy, like a keypad instead of a key lock. A key lock can be really hard to turn. So having a keypad on the door, or security measures that allow that independence. It'd be hard to limit. I think it's a very big area.
And then also, is there a log of the history of the percentage of earnings of the investment accounts?
We do have, I don't have it up right now, but on our website on iable.gov, we do have all of the performance for the plans up there, and we'd certainly be happy to send that link out to anybody to easily get to that. But our website is fairly easy to navigate, but we do have the performance returns.
And I think this is the last one. Just to clarify, any money I make can go into an IAble account and not be counted as an asset. And I think we were saying that that's not the case.
Well, income can go in. So if it's earned income, they can put up to that $12,000 amount. Now that doesn't, in terms of how Social Security qualifies whether or not that's income, that's a separate kind of question. But for what you can put into the IAble account, you can go up to that $12,760.
So Social Security is going to look at it as an income and do whatever calculation that person is eligible to have an accountable income, no matter where. They don't care where it goes after as much, where they're going to count the earned income. So you have to be aware of that.
I think we've got through all of them. I apologize if I may have missed a question.
Well, we'll certainly make sure, and we'll send out responses as we if we missed a few questions. I just want to take a minute and thank you to everybody. We've still got quite a few people that are still on the webinar, so thank you for hanging in there with us. If you do have any questions afterwards, please don't hesitate to reach out to either organization. I wanted to just once again say thank you to our panelists. We appreciate you taking the time tonight to share your information with people. And we know that this is a program that's made a difference in your lives. And we just appreciate you sharing that with potential future IAble participants. So again, thanks everybody for attending the webinar.